Yeah. Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker Room. Yeah, we in the Locker Room. Texas Talk. Yeah.
Welcome to the Locker Room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 610 and the Odyssey app, which is where Nick Caserio was today. Or yesterday, I should say. Goodness gracious, can't even keep up with what day it is. He had some interesting things to say, some real encouraging things. You got to feel good about all three major layers of this organization, from ownership to general manager to head coach. You got to feel good about it. At least on the outside, it seems like they're heading in the right direction. Now, will that correlate to wins or losses? Who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? But you got to feel pretty good about it. And one of the things I like the most, among many, and be sure to subscribe, like, ride along. Number one source for Texans daily digital content. Comment. Be heard. I like to interact. I don't like to just hear myself talk. I like to interact with you, whether it's on the air, whether it's online, etc. Be sure to subscribe. But one of the things among many that I like about this Caserio thing, and he's on with Sean Pendergast and Seth Payne on the Odyssey app and Sports Radio 610, is that it seems like the blowhard rookies don't know anything and they don't know a damn thing era with Bill O'Brien. It's gone. And they are embracing young players. They are embracing rookies. They're not hesitant to praise them. They're not hesitant to critique them. And it's good to see, because a lot of times these rookies can make quick impacts. And when you're immediately dismissive of them, like Bill O'Brien was, A, you're not going to maximize what they can be because you're ruining their confidence. And B, you're handcuffing your squad. You're not maximizing talent. And Nick Caserio seems like a guy who comes from the place where Bill O'Brien tries to act like he's like an authoritative voice from the Patriot way. Nick Caserio seems more open to working and learning new things. He's a sponge. He's taking on these new systems. He's progressing, and he also seems to be down with these rookies. And there was a lot of praise that he handed out for rookies. We're going to hear him talk about the two most important rookies, or the two guys that were drafted the highest, including one that plays the most important position. And we're going to hear him talk about one just unsolicited that I think will make a lot of people happy. It seems like there's one guy on the Texans that a lot of people are extremely frustrated with, and if the guy that Nick Caserio praised unsolicited performs on the field, maybe we won't have to look at that guy as much. Let's start with Nick Caserio talking about CJ Stroud. And at the end of this clip, I want you to listen to what he mentions, because I think this is something very important for CJ Stroud when it comes to whether or not he's going to be ready to perform week one against the Baltimore Ravens, which, holy crap, about 2.5 months away. Cannot wait. Here's Nick Caserio, though, with Sean Pendergast and Seth Payne talking about CJ Stroud.
From the start of sort of OTAs to the end point here, he's certainly made a lot of progress. From CJ's perspective, there's been examples good in those areas, and there's been some examples where, wait a minute, okay, let's go back and take another look at that. He's certainly made some progress. There's some things that he can continue to work on. I'm sure there's some things that he learned in the spring that he hadn't seen before. So when we get back in a training camp, try to build on those things. And I would say we haven't talked about this yet, but I think when we practice with Miami and New Orleans, those are going to be two really good opportunities to work against the different scheme kind of before we get to Baltimore in a real live setting.
Those joint practices are going to be huge for CJ Stroud. And those are better for a quarterback, and they're better reps for a quarterback than actual preseason games. Now, logistically, preseason games are important. I think preseason games are really important for the coaching staff, whether it's D'Amico Ryans, whether it's Bobby Slowick, whether it's Gerard Johnson, whether it's Matt Burke, whether it's Frank Ross, and whether it's really the players, like getting to know how you're going to call timeouts, how you're going to observe the game, how you're going to oversee the defense, how you're going to get your message across. That's huge for D'Amico Ryans. Those are valuable reps. Bobby Slowick, how are you going to talk to the quarterback? It doesn't matter if it's a starter or not. You're communicating the same way. So Bobby Slowick, that's huge. Matt Burke, how are you going to call the defense? Preseason's huge for that. Players don't care. A lot of veterans don't care. And the coaches aren't going to be trying to scheme you up. And a lot of times the players are going to be coasting. They're not going to do that in joint practices. Who's the most notorious non-practice player and one of the best players in franchise history that we talk about all the time, and it's kind of been talked about recently because it's been newsworthy? DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins doesn't practice. He doesn't practice hard. That's not really what he does. He doesn't need to. He gets his body ready. And we've heard Bill O'Brien bitch about it. We've heard a lot of people talk about it. But you know what? Two of the most intense moments that we've seen from DeAndre Hopkins have taken place in joint practices. This is a guy who doesn't like to practice. You had the Jimmy Ward fight when they practiced with the 49ers, and you had the D'Angelo Hall back and forth when they were going against Washington. Even guys like DeAndre Hopkins bring it out. It's a territorial thing. You're going to get most of the star players. That's the one time they want to practice. These players get bored practicing and hitting each other. And when they see another team, they crank it up a notch. Those joint practices are intense. Preseason games are not. We know that. Some people want to eliminate the preseason altogether. Logistically, it's huge. But as far as reps and as far as like quality of competition and intensity, those joint practices for CJ Stroud, when it comes to perhaps getting him ready against Baltimore, those are huge, man. I thought that was an excellent point by Nick Caserio. How about Will Anderson, the number 2 overall pick? Will Anderson. We'll hear the praise, the unexpected praise from Nick Caserio about another rookie that'll make you feel pretty excited if you're one of the many people who's kind of tired of seeing a certain someone on the field for this squad. But here's Nick Caserio talking about Will Anderson, and this is going to be real exciting as well. It's a lot of excitement going on around here. Here's Nick Caserio talking about Will Anderson, though. You're going to love to hear this.
From Will's perspective, his playing strength looks like he's going to be able to set the edge. He plays with power, and he's nonstop in his motor. And candidly, he doesn't really say much. He's more of a doer, more about action. I think he's been what we thought he was going to be. He's been very consistent. He's been that way his whole career. It'd be interesting to see once we get to training camp, once we're able to go at a quicker pace, does that continue to carry over? But the right mindset, the right work ethic, worked on both sides of the line, both right and left. We've worked him a little bit inside too, and some of the third down stuff. Does that mean he's going to end up in there? I think there's going to be certain packages probably that we have in passing situations where you might try to get your best rushers or your most athletic group on the field.
Right side, left side, inside, outside. You got to love that. I mean, that tells you all you need to know about Will Anderson. I think it's accepted that Will Anderson was the guy that they liked the most in this draft. And they're not talking about, hopefully he's ready to go, which they are with CJ, and maybe rightfully so, because CJ probably has a little bit more work when it comes to making an immediate impact, and there's stuff around him that maybe could limit him, and the quarterback position is a difficult position to play. But he's not talking about if he's ready. He's talking about we're lining him up on the right side. We're lining him up on the left side. We're lining him up on the inside. We've had to tell him to slow it down. Will Anderson, that's going to be exciting. So 2 important pieces of information. Now, number 1, CJ Stroud, the joint practices are going to be huge. Number 2, Will Anderson's going to be all over the effing place. You're going to have to look up and look all over the place to figure out where the heck number 45 is. Another guy that Nick Caserio mentioned, he wasn't even asked about him. Henry Toa is how Caserio pronounced it. Linebacker out of Alabama. D'Amico's got to like them linebackers out of Alabama. Nick Caserio talked about him, and I know there's a lot of people that are tired of Christian Kirksey, tired of him. Maybe Henry Toa can take that spot, and we can get a little bit more upside in the front 7 with Henry Toa. Here's Nick Caserio praising Henry T.
Not that you've asked about him, but I would say Toa has really been, I would say, pretty advanced relative to his understanding of what's going on the defensive side of the ball, which going back to even 2 years ago when we drafted Christian. So Christian and Henry played next to one another that 2021 season. But Henry's come in terms of understanding, awareness, instincts, communication, being able to make adjustments, being able to anticipate, being able to get a run pass key. I mean, there's been plenty of plays where the quarterback is either under center or in a gun, and he's pointing to the air saying, okay, it's probably a pass. Not that like the whole stadium doesn't know, but you're looking for some keys to give you an inclination about what could happen on the play. So going back to kind of what we talked about with the rookies in general, they've really worked their ass off. They've taken the coaching, they've improved. And I'd say Henry looks like he has a pretty good understanding of concepts and overall awareness. So it'd be interesting to see kind of how that manifests itself a little bit more once we get.
All right. So you're hearing a lot of praise there. Seems like he's kind of a smart guy. Maybe some unrealized potential in a crazy way at Alabama. I know he's one of the higher recruited guys before he went to Tennessee, but maybe there's even like some unrealized potential there. Quite honestly, look, and I'm one of those guys that watches more college football than most, or as much as most of you that are in here. I'm sure you watch it all the time. We know guys like Toto because Alabama's on every week, and you see him as one of the focal points. I was actually surprised that they got him when they did. The Texans, I could easily see him playing his way into a starter role, and you having 3 Alabama guys at least in that front 7 with Christian Harris, Henry T, and Will Anderson. Going to be fun. Really fun times. The blowhard rookies don't know anything era is gone. The Bill O'Brien era is gone. The ownership seems happy. The GM seems to be still learning and open-minded. And the head coach, he was a guy that everyone wanted. So good times here. Subscribe, like, ride along. And always remember, when it comes to this Texans game and it comes to following the Texans, covering the Texans, cussing and discussing the Texans, we're all in this together. Have a good one.
Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source.